Welcome to Healthcare Sucks. Now to the news, guys. I thought we'd listen to this guy. He was making a lot of sense. Even though this is, I believe this is Australia.
A once in 100-year event. A global health pandemic that has fast become an economic crisis, the likes of which we have not seen since the Great Depression. Life is changing in Australia for every Australian, and life is going to continue to change. For many, young and old, 2020 will be the toughest year of our lives. Meeting this challenge is bigger than any Australian. It's obviously bigger than politics. It's bigger than any of us who are in this chamber. Prime Ministers, leaders of the opposition, ministers, shadow ministers, members of Parliament. Bigger than all of us. It's bigger than premiers, chief ministers, captains of industry, leaders of union movements. It's bigger than all of us. And I want to thank all of those who have come to this great challenge with such a unity of spirit. It requires every single Australian to do their duty as public citizens. So again, in that spirit, I want to thank in particular the nation's premiers and chief ministers for coming together to form Australia's first ever national cabinet, a cabinet of all Australian governments, 5 Labor leaders, 4 coalition leaders. And I want to thank the Leader of the Opposition for the cooperation he and his colleagues have afforded us here in this Parliament as we battle this dual health and economic crisis. Today, we have some very important work to do. Importantly, to cushion the blow on Australians from the economic whirlwind that is being reaped by this coronavirus. In the months ahead, we will face more issues that none of us even now can imagine. Our job as the Australian government is to work night and day to ensure our great country, our beloved Australia, gets to the other side and emerges stronger, safer and united. Mr. Speaker, Australians will be living with this virus, is our advice, for at least the next 6 months. It could be longer.
And I'm going to try to get New York. Governor came out and said 9 months. So you've heard it straight out. And this is, yes, this is Australia, but it doesn't matter. We're in this together, guys. What he's saying makes common sense. Hopefully, again, the House and the Senate will come to terms and start working together in this crisis.
There is no 3 or 4 week shutdown that makes it all go away. There is no short-term solution to this. We have to steel ourselves for the next 6 months and work together to slow the spread in order to save lives, to protect the elderly and vulnerable Australians. They are counting on us. Every extra bit of time we save allows us to better prepare for the challenges that are ahead. Last night, all the states and territories through the National Cabinet agreed to an even more stringent set of social distancing rules that will change further how we all live our lives. No more going to the pub after work. No more going to the gym in the morning. No more sitting down for brunch at a cafe. These changes are vital to slow the spread of this virus to save lives. As the virus spreads, and it will, governments around Australia will not be complacent and may need and are likely to need to impose further restrictions on our daily lives. Wherever possible, we will seek to do that to ensure a consistency of approach between all states and territories. It will be absolutely vital that every Australian respects and follows the healthy social distancing measures that all Australian governments have implemented in order to flatten this curve and to save lives. limits on outdoor and indoor mass gatherings, keeping non-essential indoor gatherings to less than one person per 4 square metres. Wherever possible, keeping 1.5 metres between yourself and others. Avoiding all non-essential travel. Even simply following good hygiene is essential to slowing this virus. Washing your hands thoroughly, cough and sneeze into your elbow, don't touch your face. All practical measures that we can all observe to save lives. And I say this, while you may not be able to go to church, the synagogue, the temple, or the mosque, I most certainly call on all people of faith in our nation to pray. I can assure you, my prayer knees are getting a good workout. Mr. Speaker, as Australia works to flatten the curve and slow this virus, we also face an immense economic challenge. Across Australia today, many thousands of Australians will lose their jobs. They are lining up at Centrelink offices as we speak. Something unimaginable.
One in New York and all the other states and areas that could follow suit behind this. This man now setting forth the biggest timeline we've seen yet in terms of a lockdown, saying, oh, I don't have a crystal ball, but you guys could be locked down for the next 9 months or longer. 9 months or longer, do you know what that does to this country, to the economy, to everyday life as you know it? You are living in one of the biggest staged events in history. And I hope you have the eyes to see it, not get caught up in the bickering in the government-created rabbit holes that I thought some of you were smart enough not to go down and fall down into. To see this for what it is.
And that's the great Dabu. Go check it out. I don't want to get in trouble for running his stuff. I think he would understand, but I don't want to step on no toes. I will give him a shout out.
The virus in Italy has now overtaken the figure in China. In the past 24 hours, the Italy death toll has jumped by more than 400 deaths, taking it to just over 3,400. Well, across Europe, it's been another day of grim statistics and images as the virus spreads. According to the AFP news agency, more than 100,000 people are infected right across the continent. Let's take a look. We're going to start now in France, Paris. Tougher restrictions have been brought in on day 3 of the lockdown. Cycling is now banned. Any outdoor activity is restricted to just 2 kilometres from people's homes. The authorities say the initial 15-day lockdown has been extended. 372 people have now died in France. Next, let's go to Madrid in Spain, the centre of Spain's outbreak, really. Some hotels are being used as makeshift hospitals to free.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. The Canadian government has yet to declare a national state of emergency, but every single province and territory have declared some type of health emergency. Nova Scotia is the latest, and the rules are aimed at people within the province and those from other parts of this country.
If you are coming into our province, you'll be stopped at every entry point, questioned, and told to self-isolate. For those who are not essential service and want to enter our province for social purposes, please stay home.
Our Ross Lord is in Nova Scotia. Ross, Premier Stephen McNeil was very blunt about the need for people to change their behavior.
You can hear it in his voice, and he says that he's still seeing or hearing of too many people gathering in large groups at things like beaches and parks, even street hockey games. He says they're blatantly disregarding social distancing guidelines. The new rules limit gatherings to 5 people. The government says people can still leave their homes for things like fresh air or to go out and pick up groceries, but it says families should identify one person to make the trip to minimize how many people are out in public. On top of that, effective Monday, anyone traveling into Nova Scotia from another province must also self-isolate. Exceptions will be made only for critical supplies or services. And now for a province that was late to use the word emergency, these restrictions leapfrog others.
We therefore have no choice but to call upon the police and law enforcement community to enforce self-isolation and social distancing.
All right, Ross, let's talk about the fines if Nova Scotians don't abide by these new restrictions. Lay those out for us.
Well, for individual violators, the fines will be $1,000.
Wow.
For businesses, $7,500. The government wanted to hammer home the point that there will be additional repeat fines if violations continue. In some ways, protecting the healthcare system here and limiting the spread of the virus is even more important in this province because we have the highest percentage of seniors in Canada, and emergency departments are already overwhelmed, Robin.
All right, Ross Lord in Nova Scotia tonight.
We're going to run some more of that later, guys, in the next video.
Job nationwide, delivering whatever you order amidst rising fears.
Could someone have it? Is the package contaminated?
Richard Hooker says the worry starts in the warehouse, where coworkers say companies are putting them in close proximity to those who could carry COVID-19.
No soap, no hand sanitizer, there's no cleanliness at all. But we're essential. Now they're telling us we're essential.
Drivers used to handling hundreds of packages a day now do so at their own risk. UPS veteran Nichelle Fillmore had to buy her own hand sanitizer and says this new demand is like the Christmas rush plus a health threat no one can see.
At the end of the day, do you feel safe?
Well, at this point, I don't think any of us feel safe.
Companies stress they're changing policies. UPS stating if any employee experiences symptoms such as fever or respiratory infection, they are required to seek medical treatment immediately and not come to work. Adding our vehicles are cleaned and disinfected daily. FedEx following suit, suspending requirements for most customer signatures, stocking hand sanitizer at facilities, and promoting social distancing on the job. Doctors say when it comes to your own deliveries, leave it outside for 24 hours if you can. When you do bring that package inside, the safest bet is to start with gloves. Then once open, don't leave the box laying around. Toss it or recycle immediately. As for the contents, a wipe down, while not necessary, can bring valuable peace of mind. And when you're done, don't forget a good hand washing.
In spite of the fact that we know that it can survive on surfaces and that contact can be a mode of transmission, the experts still firmly say that the main mode of transmission is via respiratory droplets, not contact.
Valuable perspective in the fight against a virus that's still relatively unknown. Morgan Chesky, NBC News.
Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel.
Well, we talked about this, guys, like weeks ago. That exact scenario. The other scenarios we talked about, we've been talking about that. I want to give you guys credit at Team 99 and others. I know you're doing the best you can. And sometimes in a situation, that's all you can do. So, if you have any extra monies and resources, and there's things you still feel you need, I suggest you go out and get them as soon as you can. Be safe. At some point, you yourselves have to decide when you're going to do the lockdown before we're forced to. And with that, God bless you. Have a good night. And healthcare sucks. Over and out.